Hello world, from whichever time zone you're catching me from, my name is MD90. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notification to all so that you do not miss the uploads that come up. And the easiest way for you to navigate the channel is to head to the playlist. You'll find videos curated for you based on your interest. So if you're interested in the Kutika podcast, you'll find a playlist for that. For news and trends, there's a playlist for that. Exclusive with MD90, a bunch of playlists that are created based on your interest. So the easiest way to navigate the channel is head straight to the playlist and you'll find what you're here for. Consider becoming a member of the channel. Right next to the subscribe button is the join button. You click on the join button so that you can become a member of the channel. You support the team on the production and a number of things that we're doing here, and we appreciate that.
Well, the president has decided to act. So it's going to be a very rough weekend for some officials in government. As the president has decided, this was just posted like 2 minutes ago when it was announced, the head of state, President Hakainde Hichilema, has fired a number of ministers and permanent secretaries. So the Smart Eagles there reports to say Bali cracks a whip on the number of ministers, and then they list the number of ministers that have been fired and new appointees. So the backstory to this, for you that have not been following the news, is that if you remember, it should have been like a day ago, in fact, just 24 hours ago, there was a debate in Parliament that happened. That was presented by the Patriotic Front, where they wanted to debate the cost of living in Zambia and stuff like that. And then UPND members of Parliament and ministers decided to walk out of Parliament. I do not know whose strategy that was, but anyway, they did that thing. They walked out of Parliament. But the backlash that they received from the public, both from the UPND and also from the opposition, is something that they did not anticipate. That's what seems to have triggered the ripple effect of this. So I will read you what the president has said about the people that is fired, but that's a backstory to this. So this is how it played out. KBF earlier on had said, let's just discuss high cost of living. You walk out of Parliament. Who are you representing, if not the people? So that's part of the conversation that was proceeding in the nation. And even the UPND UK chapter said, UPND members of Parliament walk away from Parliament. They refuse to debate on cost of living. If our own members of Parliament are failing to debate in Parliament, how will they campaign in their constituencies? They ask there in 2026. That's the UPND chapter. They're asking that question to say, wait a second, if they're not even willing to have the conversation. So you could see both from the UPND, the opposition, the backlash was pretty much the same, asking the question there. And then Laura Miti went further to ask to say, I find it very difficult to understand how President Hakainde Hichilema there with deep corporate background, President Hichilema has, can be so at ease with the incompetency that surround him. How he would how he would be so poor at hiring and firing. So she asked the question to say, wait a second, because if you remember, one of the key traits that made Hakainde Hichilema more marketable was the fact that he was a very competent corporate individual who had worked in the corporate world with a no-nonsense kind of personality to say, if you make a mistake, you account for it. But what has been happening in his cabinet and his government leaves a lot of people to ask. That's what is asking there. And then there was also a conversation that George Tonga, this is the UPND individual based in the US, Zambia based in the US diaspora. He had said, if you remember, Chimbakabwe had brought up the issue, saying, when Zambian economy was having issues under the Patriotic Front, Kambwili said it was a global. We denied him a scapegoat, so we cannot argue that it's global. So that conversation, because of the backlash that had happened from the ministers walking out of Parliament, now the debate came to social media, because now people want to have that conversation to say, wait a second, why didn't they want to talk about it? So that's what you're saying. The fact that you could not allow Chimbakambwe to use the scapegoat to say the economic downturns that the country is undergoing were global, why should we allow the UPND to do the same? That's the UPND asking there. So you can see the backlash was from both angles there. And then Laura Midi goes further to say, Hichilema's appointments are truly disappointing. That's Laura, she goes further to say. I completely agree with Laura Beauty's assessment of President Hakainde Hichilema's appointees. Truly disappointing. See many underperforming individuals in critical positions, especially given high expectations for the leader with a strong corporate background. So pretty much reiterating the point that she had made earlier on to say, I mean, people were expecting a lot from President Hakainde Hichilema, considering his corporate background, but his appointees, and worse off, he's not firing them. So you can see how that built up. And then KBF went to saying, a government that lives that lives in fear of its own people is not fit to rule. That's KBF there. Kelvin Fube. And then Cornelius Mweta justified say, Cornelius Mweta says UPND members of parliament walked out yesterday because Kafaya always goes to parliament or party with sarcasm, and members of parliament just gave him a taste of his own medicine. Walking out is part of parliamentary democracy and politics. So that's the justification that they gave to the news diggers to say, I mean, it's part of parliament. And then Fred Member says, Mr. Hichilema and the UPND government justifies the walkout of parliament by its ministers on the high cost of living debate. So you could see the justification and it don't land well. Pretty much whoever was behind this move of instigating that they walk out of parliament should be the individual that is fired, because it did not land well. The UPND did not receive it well. The opposition did not receive it well. The citizenry did not receive it well. You can just see everybody's on the same side to say, wait, these guys are not even willing to have a conversation. Oh, so it's that backlash that has prompted them now to start having the conversation online and all those statements that you're seeing there. And then Laura has also been, she did a live stream, she put up a statement, she's been going in on this issue. She said previous presidents made better appointments, and then she gives an example. One thing I miss about the MMD, that's MMD administration, from Chiluba down to Arabi, is the quality and just about everything appointed high quality officials. Okay, there were one or two iffy ministries or ministers, especially those overseeing the Copper Belt and vice presidents that were that we should thank God were fired before they could do any more damage. But most of the appointments that were made by RB and Chiluba were good appointments. But what is going on? So she pretty much put a number of articles. So the president earlier on today was just having a day. He said, "Oh, pretty much puts up an emoji about rain to say we thank. Keep thanking and then praying emoji." And then the people there, you can see Thomas Supalo, also known as Difficult, says, yes, we are thankful, discipline your members of parliament and ministers for abandoning a debate on a high cost of living. Many Zambians are desperate and they need hope for a better future. So he says, in as much as you talk about the rain, the conversation in the nation is about the high cost of living, and your ministers decided to walk out of parliament instead of having that conversation. So the president, 5 hours later, that's when he put up a firing memo. So George also weighed in, George Mutonga, as I told you, this is the UPND supporter who's very blunt about supporting President Hakainde Hichilema and the UPND and how they campaigned, but he's based in the US. So he was in the country around November to December, if I'm not mistaken, same thing. And then he says, I was in Zambia. I saw the price myself. I visited small businesses that are closing down because of load shedding. He tags the president, actually. He tags President Hakainde Hichilema. He says, I promised you in 2021 that I will never lie to you, telling the president to say, in as much as the time we were in opposition, I told you I will not tell you the lie. People are suffering. And the more you talk about deals around the world, the more you come across as not being in touch with reality. And then he picks up a bag of mini meal there. You can see this is the UPND individual so that you see on screen there, George Mutonga. And then obviously Mashaka Kashambato responded to him. He says this is another UPND supporter based in the US also. responded to George Mutonga, says, George Mutonga, the cost of living is rising everywhere. That is partly why the Democrats lost the elections last November. The people in Zambia, the problem in Zambia is that not necessarily the cost of living, but the stagnant wage rate and high unemployment rate. That's according to Mashaka Akashambata. Both of these individuals that are having this back and forth are both UPND, but they are based in the US. So George Mutonga responds to that rebuttal from Mashake. This is like saying the sky is blue. It's obvious. It does not change the need for leadership, he asked to say. In as much as, yes, that's a prevailing situation, it does not change the reality on the ground. That's pretty much. So this conversation that was supposed to be had in Parliament started happening online, so you could see how tense it became. And then George Mutonga goes say, the funny thing is that you all know that what I'm saying is true, but you are scared to say the truth. I've never understood this about Zambia, saying the cost of living is high and people are suffering, but you guys are not willing to have that conversation. That's George Mutonga there. And then he laughs it off, obviously. And then you can see Akashambata's rebuttal on his page there. And then he says, the union in Zambia must organize for better wages. So his argument to say for better wages across the country, we also need to continue expanding the economy for increased job availability, he argues there. And then obviously George Mutonga rebuttal to say, I was in Zambia. He shows pictures of how he interacted with marketeers and everybody. So meaning he knows what he's talking about. Both of these guys were in Zambia, so they share different experiences. And finally, an hour ago, the president was compelled to fire some people. So the president put up this post just an hour ago. He says, fellow citizens, kindly note that I have made the following changes. President Hakainde Hichilema, President of the Republic of Zambia, and he lists the number of new changes that he has made. To say, I've fired the number of ministers and the number of permanent secretaries. And then you say, Mashake Akashambata from the US also in Zambia says, wait a second, I'm not sure why my president does not make any changes at cabinet level. Your Excellency, he tags the president, responding to the president there, saying, you have non-performing ministers in cabinet. Those are the ones that need to be fired, because the people that the changes that the president has made is pretty much provincial ministers and a number of permanent secretaries. But the impact of provincial ministers is not a conversation here. They're like pawns in this grand scheme of chess in terms of politics. So people wanted to see a change and then he tags to say, the Minister of Agriculture is one of them, according to Mashaka. They are commenting to the president, why are you not firing people from the cabinet? Because that's what Hakainde Hichilema was known for, to be very decisive. But this is because even this firing looks like it's because of the pressure, the backlash that has come out of the people talking about the conversation to say your ministers are not even willing to have a conversation in Parliament. Now that pressure is too much. The president issues the firing, and the firing itself also. You go and fire provincial ministers and fire permanent secretaries when the problem is they're in cabinet. I do not know what leverage these ministers have over the president, because man, it's not looking good. It's not looking good. But yeah, so he has made a number of firing, but pretty much it's the provincial ministers and permanent secretaries. But people are saying no, and the person that is responding to the president there is a UPND supporter. He says, no, the problem isn't those provincial ministers. It's in cabinet. He even says the Minister of Agriculture, one of them, and the number of people he mentions there that need a little bit of reshuffle. And over just George Mutonga also shares his experience. And then he closes it off to say, this is George Mutonga 21 minutes ago. He says, I want a good legacy for him, meaning President Hakainde Hichilema. He tags President Hakainde Hichilema and then the barrister there said, I want a good legacy for him. I want history to remember him the way I know him, he says. I cannot do the work by myself. I know politics have to feed a point because of support. They supported. He says the number of people that the president is keeping in his cabinet is because they supported him in the build-up towards for him to win his presidency. But they are not performing. Understand that. But you are, I mean, I said, but if you are working for this man, help him build a legacy. He says, you guys are not helping the president. That's a point he's pretty much trying to put across there. But then again, George, you cannot blame the people who say that they're not supporting the president. The president was given a mandate by the majority of Zambians to say, we have voted for you, beating the closest rival, Edgar Lungu, by 1 million votes. That's not a small margin. So if he who has the power cannot fire the people that are incompetent, who do you feel the people are going to fire next? It's going to be the president, and that's through the ballot box. So these decisions of instead of firing the people that are supposed to be fired, you fire provincial ministers. Anyway, it is what it is. But anyway, that's what has happened. The president has fired those provincial ministers and the number of permanent secretaries. But people are saying, no, that's not where we want it. We wanted it to be in cabinet and not those. That's the news, ladies and gentlemen.